I mean, when I first kind of came out of my coma, I like to say I was just like a step up from a vegetable.
Mm,
And I've just come so far. It's just crazy how like plastic the brain is and how much it wants to heal if you put it in a position for it to heal.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Nick Halsey with Motus Nova. I'm a licensed neurophysical therapist and neuroscientist helping brain injury survivors understand how to make functional gains after their injury. I hope this video helps you in your recovery.
Hey, yeah. Can you hear me?
I can, Jordan. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for asking.
Yeah.
Would you mind just giving me a quick introduction to kind of who you are and where you're calling from?
So, okay, my name is Jordan Windsor. I'm out over on the left coast, Washington State.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so I had a brain injury back in 2010. Been grinding for the past like 10 years on and off with the levels of intensity of my rehab. But so I was in a coma for 6 weeks, and I woke up and I just totally forgot like how to walk, and kind of just my brain just kind of deleted all that information and replaced it with just in, intense like stiffness and rigidity. And so, I mean, when I first kind of came out of my coma, I like to say I was just like a step up from a vegetable.
Mm,
And I've just come so far. It's just crazy how like plastic the brain is and how much it wants to heal if you put it in a position for it to heal. Like the body will do everything if and with regards to healing if you allow it to. Like, and I don't have the ability to ambulate my legs, but I've seen like the levels of stiffness go down the more I try and fire the muscle and everything like that. So I mean, yeah, I can't I don't like have my standing balance, but it's
mhm.
getting a lot better as I do various exercises and like force them to fire and whatnot. And so yeah, I stumbled across your guys's program just by doing a simple Google search. Like uh, I forget what I searched, but you guys popped up, and so I just followed the links and just did all the stuff, and now here I am, just on my mission of my journey, I guess, to restore my body, because I really do think uh, I have the power to. The power is within my body to make a 100% recovery. Um, so yeah, I mean, just grinding still.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, first of all, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of insight into your story. And I use the word little insight explicitly because, of course, you're not able to encapsulate over 10 years of neuro rehab in a couple of sentences, but I think you did a nice job of transmitting some information to me. And
Yeah,
I'm also quite happy that our paths have intersected. And so, however that happens, I'm always happy to have conversations with people. And so,
for sure.
very, very glad that you're here. And I guess a question then for you is what can I do in terms of being a resource for you guys? And so I can give you a quick, you know, high level overview of what things we can do. I'm happy to, of course, answer questions about general neuroscience or neuro rehab in general, or more specifically about the robotic um, applications and sort of their background and the efficacy and all that kind of stuff. So I very much like to take these opportunities to frame our conversations to be most useful for you. And so with that in mind, what types of things can we do together to be most helpful?
Well, okay, because like I really fully believe that everything. Geez, my cat just jumped up on my lap. Everything in my body can recover itself and restore itself, because that's what the body wants to do. It was designed to heal. Like I think that just waking up my ankles could play a huge role in kind of waking up my whole legs, because it's got like there's so much carryover effect with like neuro rehab. Like you like just last night I was in like this little standing frame, like trying to just do sit to stands, getting my hips forward. And when I went to bed last night, I noticed that my trunk was so much more upright and tall just from like extending my legs and doing sit to stands. So there was like a lot of carryover with that. And I'm thinking that just with a lot of repetition, that maybe doing something with my ankles could have a similar effect.
Yeah. And so, we actually focused on designing these robotic devices. I mean, a couple of things I wanted to bring up here. You mentioned like the Armeo and some other sort of technologies, and you're exactly right. There's a lot of technologies out there, and one of the biggest limiting factors is that they're kind of big, right? And they're kind of restricted to a clinic or hospital. And this really kind of informed the way that we design things, and that is, we took more of a modular approach, and we, of course, could have designed something for like the shoulder or the elbow or the, or the hip or the knee. But for us, when we consider sort of the rate limiting steps or the bottlenecks by which function depends, it's so much about the distal parts of our limbs, right? Those are the things that interact with the world. For instance, if you're trying to pick up a bottle of water, you have to use your hand. It's really hard to use your elbow, your shoulder to do that. Same thing with the lower extremity, the foot and the ankle, right? So much of our upright balance is due to the ankle control, right? It's got that multidimensional control to provide kind of force vectoring to make sure that we can stand up appropriately. It's also absolutely critical for us to be able to walk forward, right? Well over half of the forward propulsion walking is due to the ankle, the gastrocs and the soleus muscles. Those things allow us to have the power to walk forward. A lot of people think it's your quads and your hips and all that. Well, those things help you stand erect and upright, but they don't help you walk forward. Similarly, being able to have the front and the back part of your leg, the tibialis anterior and the gastrocs working in synchrony, allows us to also be able to stand up appropriately and maintain our balance in response to some perturbation, right? Or if you find yourself, a great example is if you find yourself staying on a bus and the bus is moving around, you have to be able to mount a response to keep yourself upright. Or if you're walking around, for instance, in your home and you've got some carpet and some uneven surfaces or up and down stairs or even around your yard, all of these things require finding control about the ankle to be able to be successful. And so we focused on designing a system that is directed at improving ankle, not only sensory motor control, but also the power about the ankle. And so that's, I think it really, your concepts that you're bringing up really resonate with our sort of design and implementation of the systems themselves. And when we test these things in the clinic, in terms of clinical trials or large implementation studies, we do see that those effects have carryover, which is kind of cool, beyond just the place we target them, right? Because yeah, we're focused on the ankle, but we also have improvements about the rest of the kinematic chain, as one may say. And so we're able to help people walk further and faster, which are really critical elements for the lower extremity device. And of course, with the upper extremity device, we're able to help people improve their elbow and their shoulder control. And there's a number of reasons why this is the case. But one of them is principally the fact that if we give you the ability to use your hand again in daily life, you're more likely to use your whole arm again, because now you're not restricted by having a less efficient end effector, which is our hand and our fingers. And so you're more likely to incorporate it. And you can reverse this process called learned non-use, when you would preferentially not use a limb. And so those are some of the concepts. I think we're speaking the same language here. And I think just wanted to give you some of the background and sort of some of our sort of design directives about why we've done the thing we've done.
Hey, if you're finding this video helpful, please hit like and subscribe to help other brain injury survivors learn how Motus Nova is changing neuro-rehab.
We're very much on the same page there, but just want to ask you if you have any other specific questions for me.
For someone who does not have the ability to stand up and maintain their balance, have you seen people regain the ability to kind of get their center of gait or whatever, retrain their standing balance, have that become more strong or whatever, just through using this equipment? I don't know, it probably does, yes, but it's do you guys ever use it for people trying to retrain their gait, standing balance and stuff?
Yes, that, like I said, that is exactly how we evaluate the efficacy, right? Because we're so focused on improving gait, and individuals who don't have that ability to walk. The other really nice thing about the systems is that it doesn't require you early on to actually stand up, right? You can
Hmm.
use it in a seated posture and work on those in a very safe and effective manner, where you can build up the capacities as sort of foundational elements to that next step, to allow you to become more safe and more powerful when you stand upright. Um, and so I think it is exactly in line with what you're talking about in terms of sort of helping individuals in your case where you are not so easily able to incorporate those, let's call them higher level exercises. This thing is a great bridge to get you to that point when you can kind of graduate from something like this and get on to, really high level dynamic activities.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, okay. I'm totally on board with like the fact that my body and everything is within me to unleash a complete recovery. Just gotta find out what the processes are and the method to
Yeah.
get to. So
Yeah, and the
yeah.
thing is, I think you've identified what those things are, right? And you know this, that there's no secret pill, right? It's really hard work, and you've been putting in the hard work for greater than 10 years at this point, and so I think you figured out what it is, what the recipe is, and it's just a matter of putting together in the right amount of dose, the right amount of time, and giving your body adequate amount of capacity to adapt to it, right? I always talk about this concept called sufficient stimuli. And this is true for all biologic systems. And this is true for medicine, right? There's a thing called the dose response curve. And the easy way to think about this is if you think about just pain. Pain is on a scale, right? Where it can go, for simply, it can be 0 pain to 10 out of 10 pain, where 10 out of 10 is like the worst possible thing you can imagine. And if you give a Tylenol, you might be able to help someone with maybe a 3 or a 4 out of 10 pain, right? That's going to be a sufficient stimuli. But if you have something that is a really significant pain, you're not going to be able to do that with one Tylenol, right? There's going to be, based on the responsiveness, you're going to have, or the, I guess, the magnitude of the injury, or in this case, the pain, you're going to have to identify an appropriate or a sufficient stimuli, in this case, in medicine, to actually correct that abnormality. And neuro-rehab is no different in that case, when we need to identify what is the best approach to help you maximize your medical recovery.
Like, what does it actually do? Like, does it go in all planes or just
Yep, it
flex
does.
or whatever it's
So
called?
yeah, it principally works in the flexion extension plane, which is called plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. I don't
Hmm.
know why they called it flexion in both directions, but one's down,
Hmm.
like if you're driving a car and it goes down, like you're pressing the gas pedal, the accelerator down. And then the dorsiflexion is when you're trying to lift off the accelerator, for instance. But it
Okay.
also works in the off-sagittal planes. So plantar flexion, dorsiflexion are called sagittal motions. Those are kind of this kind of plane right here. If you draw a plane bisecting me in half,
Okay.
it also works in rotational moments as well. So it works
Cool.
in inversion and eversion as well.
Nice.
And so so how it really works is it has sensors on board that are monitoring your movements. From those movements and forces, we call these kinematics and kinetics. Those are the sort of biomechanical terms for them. We
Mhm.
condition a virtual environment, a game, basically. And your movements control that gaming interface. And so instead of just like using your thumbs to play a video game, you're now using your limb, your foot and your ankle to control that video game. And
Cool.
that provides biofeedback by which you can learn about whether or not you're doing something correctly. And so we work on developing motor patterns again, being able to rapidly flex and extend your ankle, being able to produce enough power, reducing tone. You mentioned you had a lot of tone, right?
Hmm.
Reducing those elements. And so those are the kind of two easy to think about things. But the third element that's really important in a Motus foot is it also has the ability to help you move. So if you have trouble initiating movements, it can actually provide
Okay. Yeah.
assistance, and it can provide that in a dynamic way, meaning you can imagine a range of motion. It's fairly large, right? For our hands, it's around 170 degrees, right? Our foot and ankle around 90 degrees, maybe 100 degrees. And we may need different amounts of assistance during that range of motion, right? There might be positions for you that have more or less tone. And we would want to condition the assistance to help you in those areas where you would need it most and not help you when you don't need it. Because again, the goal is for you to ultimately graduate for something like this and become independent. And so we don't want to be able to provide too much assistance for you. And that's the intra-session kind of variability. But then we also want to be able to adapt to you over time, right? So there's changes within a day, but there's also changes between days as you progress. We want to be able to modify all of those various parameters to make sure that, again, we deliver that sufficient stimuli. So I'd say those are kind of the elements, right? We're able to condition a virtual environment on you. You can then provide inputs into that where you are then playing games. And then as you do that, you're getting information about whether or not you're doing the right pattern or not. That's giving your brain the stimuli about what it needs to learn.
Cool. Nice. Yeah. Sounds pretty promising. And I would love to give it a try.
Well, Jordan, I think we'd love to have you give it a try too. I think, you know, one of the things that I always like to say, and it's the scientist comes out here a little bit, and that is, you know, well, I can never say for certain that anyone's going to have exactly this type of outcome, right? And so the science doesn't tell us that specifically, but I think in these cases, the best thing for us to do is to try it and use the data to tell us if it's helping us. And if it's helping us, then great, let's proceed, right? We know from the literature that it will help on average, and it has shown time and time again to help everyone. But it's a matter of, you know, any one case, we need to have a little bit of hesitation, reservation, just to, and the way we alleviate that hesitation is by looking at the data and having full transparency and knowing when something's working, and we can proceed if it is. And then if there's a point when it doesn't work, then we can change parameters to make sure that it is working for you.
All right, cool. Yeah, that sounds good.
Thanks for watching this video. If you have questions or would like to speak with me about how you can make functional gains from home, call or text me at 404-939-3476 or visit motusnova.com/contact.